have often more experience and a broader perspective on the organization and its mission, and that's legitimate. But I certainly think there are times when leadership might be better found among members of a younger generation. And it's not necessarily specific to certain industries, but it certainly does tend to depend on the organization's mission. Now, in terms of age limits, I think we're going to have to remove upper age limits for social, economic, political, business reasons. I think we cannot have strict limits on how long you can work. Obviously, we have to have limits on how young you can start working. And one of the reasons for that, from a purely practical point of view, is that children, the next generation, needs an opportunity to pursue education, to pursue learning, because they will become, in the long run, better workers if they're allowed to complete their education before they start work. And the whole economy, the whole country benefits from that.
Great. Thanks for the additional comments and insights, Susan. We will now take calls from our audience. Are there any calls from our audience? All right. Well, we were just talking about how to get folks from various generations involved, and Don was just commenting on one organization that you're involved. Could you elaborate on that?
The American Institute for Graphic Arts is a national organization in the United States, and one of the key missions right now is to keep the senior and seasoned veterans engaged and involved. Those are the mentors, and they started the organization. They're the pioneers. They've been down this road already, and they really are the inspiration to the younger people in the organization. And so as they move on and have other priorities in life, the younger members lose that benefit.
So it's striking a balance between those people who actually originated the organization and then bringing younger people to perpetuate the organization and keep it going.
And I think the first caller said it's a collaboration that really is the best scenario.
Collaboration is the word. Mm-hmm. Okay, great. We go to Santo Domingo for our next question. Go ahead, please. I'm sorry, we're going to Ecuador. We had the wrong country. Ecuador, what's the question?
Good morning. We're calling from MR and Company Consulting from Ecuador. Our question is the following. What would you recommend in order to take advantage of the different advantages of a multi-generational work team? Thank you very much.
Susan, do you have a comment on that?
Well, I think we touched on one important thing earlier, which is that you have to have people who are given permission, licensed to speak up, especially younger adults. I think also making sure that the team is conscious of the fact that part of their mission, part of their responsibility is to represent their generation, that they need to bring that perspective. Each of them has to bring that perspective into the group, and then the group comes together to see what they can make of the mix of points of view.
Okay, now we go to Santo Domingo, and what is the question?
Sí, gracias. Buenos días. Y un saludo a todos los que están.
Good morning, and I would like to say hi to everybody at ITC. My question is very simple. How would you suggest that we could manage the different changes in the company when these generations start working at a company and they are members of a certain generation and they are escalating and changing generations depending on how much time they stay in the company? How can we manage this?
Well, effectively, you're speaking of the aging labor force, and one of the things you have to be conscious of, beware of, is that the longer someone's in a particular company, one company, they stay in one job, the more invested they are in the way things are now. So they want things to be the same. A lot of times we find someone begins work, they're young, they're excited, they want to change everything. And they do make a lot of changes, but now they're middle-aged, they're comfortable, the changes they made are in place, they like things the way they are. So you have to be conscious that someone who's been with the company a long time might be more reluctant to accept change, might be difficult to get them to understand the importance of continued innovation. In my own experience working with a lot of companies, I've found that one of the best things to do is simply point it out to them. Talk to them, remind them of what it was like when they just started working and were young and full of creativity and energy. And often they sort of realize what's happened, and then they're more open to allowing things to change.
Great. Our next question comes from Mexico. Go ahead, please.
A glitch in the communication, and we seem to have lost our caller.
Okay, well, it seems that we have lost our caller. Sorry to hear that. What about the history of an organization? Are there any efforts in documenting and keeping a history of the organization so that you have some kind of a sort of a transition from one generation to another?
I think a point that was made earlier about having a facilitator, and that could be that person can age and grow, or they could change as time goes through, but at least there's a key person on the team that's identified to help bridge the gap between the younger and older groups.
And organizational history is, in fact, something that resides within an organization's older employees. And as Don was saying earlier, they have an organization that they are trying to keep senior members involved in, and that's in part because they have a history, a sense of the organizational history and a continuity that they bring to it that younger generations simply can't have.
Excellent. Our next question is from Lima, Peru. Go ahead, please.
I'm a professor from the Ricardo Palma University. In terms of your experience as a facilitator, how would you, what would you recommend to the human resources director in terms of placing directors at a university, and what different experiences or competencies should a person have in order to fulfill these director postings, and how can the company work together in order to fulfill and bring together their experience?
So what's the role of a facilitator, generally speaking?
Well, certainly to help people understand what it is that they're doing. It's remarkable that we don't always recognize our own motivators, our own the reasons for our own behavior. Certainly being part of a generation is not necessarily something that we're all conscious of from day to day or even ever. And I think helping people to understand intergenerational dynamics, understand that they exist in the first place, and beyond that, understanding how they can benefit or be obstacles in the workplace is probably one of the most important roles of a facilitator in these kinds of organizations. Beyond that, just getting the institutional commitment to working with multi-generational teams or employees is key.
Okay, we don't have much time left, so we quickly go to Santo Domingo. Go ahead, please.
We're calling from Codetel from Santiago, República Dominicana, the Dominican Republic. Why are companies now asking people to retire younger, to take vacations, and this seems to go against what is set forth in this video conference? Could you explain a little?
Yes, quickly, Economy is a big reason for this problem, and the U.S. has already been through this more than once, where the economy became difficult. They encouraged people to retire earlier and earlier. People did, and the companies later came to regret it because they lost a lot of talent and information and history. And unfortunately, yes, some companies are repeating this, but hopefully this time around they won't let all of the older workers go. It's a long-term mistake, but a short-term solution to economic difficulties.
So it is not always economically more beneficial to let the older worker, which obviously costs more for the organization, to let go.
That's right. But in the long run, the older worker is often the person who has the talent and the skills and experience to guide the company through the difficult times. Or when things pick up and the economy is improved, their loss is deeply felt as those jobs go unfilled. They're not necessarily willing to come back is the problem. So,
okay. Well, thank you for your excellent questions, but we have run out of time. We hope that you have enjoyed participating once again in this exciting multilingual and multinational program. The mission of ITC is to promote a better understanding of our diversity worldwide, the new dynamics of global interdependence, and our growing need for each other through shared distance learning and networked collaboration. We invite you to participate in the 8th video conference for this year's series, Strategies for Competitive Performance, airing September 4, 2003, entitled Time Management in a Globalized Environment, Approach and Techniques. For additional information on this video conference series, please consult your participants' manual, where you will find the dates and specific topics for each program. On behalf of all of us, I thank you for your continuing ongoing participation and interest in this program. Thank you, and see you soon.